Denali, the great one. Right between those trees. Tallest mountain in North America. Good morning. Tuesday, August 20th.
There they are. Morning.
Morning. Video time.
After breakfast, I want you to take a walk. Trying to get everything in.
I think I have to go outside and video some more.
John,
Is that your son?
well, it's really our daughter-in-law.
Daughter-in-law. This has a great big engine. The rotor blades go. It's the only helicopter that can lift its own weight at sea level. So actually, the record for it is 57,000 feet. They ran out of fuel and auto-rotated all the way to the ground from 57,000 feet. The French guy that flew them up.
Well, I think all you guys are good. I learned it out when I was a kid being
They're 5 and 1. The boys are. Charlotte, the girl, she's 11, but she's just.
Yeah, right here. You're actually considered. Oh, okay. I was gonna say.
I thought about bringing you, hooking you in, but then
That is Denali, the great one. Just look at that.
101 years old, and a long time ago, they used whatever they could into shinking, burlap bags, rope, old sock, whatever you can find. Moss, yeah, still there. They still use it today. Well, they built it because they couldn't keep the crews fed that were building the road. Sorry. Grizzlies are hungry too, and kept getting into their tents and eating their food, so they had to do something to keep them fed. So they filled this full of food, and all the other guys just kind of bedded down here in Cava's tent and maybe get a letter from home or hot meal. So that's how they built the road. They just built one of these cabins every 10 miles into the road. That's how they kept them fed, and they still use it today. You guys remember where the kennels were? It's a day's mush from there to here, and they'll come right up that path you were just on. The whole team will come right up that path. They'll throw some hay or straw down on the snow for the dogs, and they'll bed right down onto that hay. Or it doesn't matter how cold it is, 30, 40 degrees below zero. Those dogs are just fine.
Grab a hold of it and I'll point to them. No? Right there, right in the middle of the screen.
Yeah.
It looks like two of them. Is there two of them now?
There's another one?
There's two of them.
Where's the other one?
I think he's actually a nice bull.
I guess. It's a trophy. He's saying, what happened to the stream? There was water here yesterday.
That's a big animal.
Are we ready?
Get in closer.
Yeah, turn sideways and get closer. And then the smile word is Bert was finally right. There you go.
Bert was right. So you guys can't even say it.
Now wait.
Oh, look, everybody, it's Nancy. Hi, Nancy.
Thanks, Bert. You missed that. She was sitting way in the back. She's like, way back here. Hey, Nancy, back here.
On the left-hand side, you see the mile marker right there, 344. We started out at 347. We'll head down to mile marker 226 in Talkeetna, 114 on Anchorage.
Should have been on the train.
From Anchorage, we'll go down to about mile marker 64, where we'll take a 12-mile long cutoff, a spur line out to Whittier through two tunnels out there. One tunnel about a mile long. The second tunnel is 2.5 miles long.
This river don't look so dirty as the one in Denali did.
Denali was very muddy.
Yeah, it was all
Very,
gray.
very,
That was
very
weird. I never saw gray water like that.
There was a reason for it.
Yeah, they said.
It was from the glacier, they said.
But normally you'd think the glacier would be clear.
Yeah, right. Hey, there's some snow up there. Not much. A little bit.
And so we're walking down.
Sweat.
Somebody's blowing bubbles.
Oh, somebody is
Bubbles. Bubbles. Is that what conductors do?
The water looks a little cleaner than the water last night we saw.
Up there. Well, for a couple
Pioneer
months out of
Peak
the
on
year
the
anyway,
left.
it's been pretty good
Peaks on the
growing
right.
season. You get 22 hours of daylight in the summertime. So they grow some pretty good, nice vegetables up there. It's coinciding with the state fair that is happening right now up in Palmer is a vegetable growing contest. Not uncommon to get 22-pound carrots, 39-pound head of cabbage, or a 21 because on Good Friday, 1964, when the 9.2 earthquake hit Anchorage and Anchorage shook for over 4 minutes straight, the ground out at Earthquake Park sank 25 to 30 feet up on that ridge, swallowed up a bunch of homes up there. You can go up there and walk around Earthquake Park and walk down. You can't really see the homes in there. It's all overgrown. All the homes were destroyed, and you can see how the sides of the cliff had come apart out there as well. Sliding down. It's a great little spot out there to walk around or ride the bike path all the way out. Lots of good information out there about Earthquake Park. Then you continue on past Earthquake Park to Point Orzana, and you can watch planes coming into Anchorage International Airport fly basically right over the top of your head. And then you can continue on and walk, be pretty much parallel right with the largest shopping mall in Alaska right here, the Diamond Center. Beautiful railroad. So very good spot for bird watchers out here. Lots of different types of birds come out here to Potter's Marsh. Flying right here from the summer.
That is weird. This is our room. This is our balcony. Pretty cloudy. We're not really on shore right now. So this is our view. There's the bridge. Nice little spot to hang out here, out of the weather. We'll go back in, it's kind of chilly. Make our beds for us each day. Little desk here. TV. Bathroom and closet is over there on the left. of it today.
Isn't that awesome?
Arrow's been kind of hard to find though. I haven't seen
Look
them.
at it.
So pretty.
Wow.
But yeah, see what I'm saying? Like all the, it's like the cute stuff. It's just. There you go. The Hubbard Glacier. Look at the blue in the ice. What makes it blue? And you can see that it goes kind of along the bottom. See if I can zoom in a little closer.
Something.
Glacier Bay National Park.
side of the Marjorie Glacier. That beautiful wall.
Juneau. Comes a big ship into port. Juneau. Coming into Ketchikan. Beautiful islands. Bridge of the ship.
God.
was a landslide there.
Yeah.
Catch a can.
Look at this, you can kind of see, if you cover this top one, it does kind of look like a butterfly. Now those are called salmonberry bushes. Now salmonberries are very good, and they are edible, so you don't have to worry about that. But they actually just got out of season, because when they are in season, that is around the beginning of July. And then after season, after they go out of season, that is when thimbleberries and huckleberries go. Now, when walking up this one, I do ask you guys to be careful, because there is a little flame going down into the ditch on this side. So if you could walk on the right side. Here. Now, this is because I'll explain a little bit more into detail in there, but what we do is we harvest the bark and we'd actually use it to weave. And this is, I would say, a bad example of it, because it's taking about half of the tree, and you're not supposed to take more than a third of it, because then it will kill the tree, and we want to save it for future generations. But there will be some more trees over there that are missing bark, and I'll actually point them out and show you what the correct amount is. You understood me? But, yep, get. That's the one word. But what I said was good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's good to see you all. My name is Yates. I am Clinton. I'm part of the Raven Beaver clan. I will be your tour guide for today. So as long as you guys are with me, you know you're in the right spot. If you guys have any questions, do feel free to ask. I will try to answer to the best of my ability. If I don't have one at the time, then I will find one before you guys leave. We will head up to the Beaver Clan house now, and then I'll tell you in here yet. But it is called a kutia, and what kutia translates to is marker or land marker. Now traditionally, all of these kutias or totem poles would be all down by the shoreline,
and they would be facing towards the water because back then all we had were canoes and ships, and so then whoever passes by would be able to see who lives here. So they could see that the eagle, beaver, halibut people live here. The middle is the eagle. The way you can tell it's an eagle and not any other bird is because the beak does curve down. And then the beaver at the top, you can tell it's a beaver because the cross-hatched tail and the buck teeth. And then at the bottom, there is a halibut. Now the way you can tell it's a halibut is because both of the eyes are on one side of the head. Now when they are younger, they do have, they have one eye on each side, and then as they get older, they actually, or one eye goes to the other side of the head. So then they have two eyes on one side. But this is the Beaver House Memorial Pool, and I didn't explain much down there, but if you guys do want to take pictures, there are no restrictions on the cameras, so.
The wealthier the clan was, and the bottom level would be filled with sand and gravel that the treasurer of the change 2 to 3 times a week. And in the middle would be a large fire burning 24/7 for heating purposes only, with smoke right above. And around that fire would be 4 to 5 smaller fires for cooking purposes only. Next thing you may have noticed is our floorboards. They're a little loose and wobbly. This is because we wanted to build this clan house as traditional as possible, which means less nails and less screws. But also, way back in the day, our ancestors used to use under the floorboards as storage for all their belongings. There'd be a notch in every other board to lift them up. But the way that they got their storage is that they would take the tallest man in the clan house, lay him flat on his back, and how much space he took up, that's how much space everyone in the clan house got. You may have walk-in closets, but my ancestors had walk-on closets. Last you may have noticed are the 3 doors, the 2 beside me and the 1 behind you. These are for fire code safety reasons only. Traditionally, we have 1 door about this size at the front of the house. This would serve 2 purposes. When there was a potlatch or a large party, the Nakami, speak of the house, would stand outside, making stop a total of 3 times to announce who is coming in, where they are from, and what rank they had if they had any. The other reason for this is when the men and young men went on hunting and fishing. This would leave the women, children, and elders home alone, vulnerable for an attack. If an attack were to happen, the invaders have to come in one at a time in a bent up position, head first. This would give the woman enough time to run down to the fire pit, grab a large rock or a log, whatever she could get her hands on, run back up, hit the attack over the head a couple times, push him aside, stand back and yell, next! Well, this concludes my portion of the tour here, but there's one last thing I'd like to teach you all before I bring up the dancers. So I'll say thank you and clink it. So if you repeat after me a couple times, goodness cheese, goodness cheese, goodness cheese,
Goodness cheese.
Okay, very good. Well, this concludes my portion of the tour here for now. I'd like to welcome out the Cape Cod Sewer dancers. So goodness cheese, no, because you're another show. This is Donner the canoeman that paddles from village to village. Book.
there's all that space and we don't just smush it together is because they have to be as tall as they could be, so that the people who are passing by could see them. Now, they were all passed down, all these stories were passed down orally. We didn't have a written language back then, so then we weren't able to write down these stories. So that means that some of these stories were actually lost throughout the generations and throughout time. So that kind of leads me into this first totem pole that I'll talk about. This is called the mystery pole. Now the reason it's called the mystery pole is because we lost the story behind it, and as I said, everything was passed down orally, so that means that there could be possibly a whole nother reason why, but what I heard is that it was lost throughout the generations of storytelling, and although I don't know any of the story behind it, I could tell you some of the figures that are on this pole. So at the very top, you see that there seems to be a chief with the chief headdress. Now that chief headdress is of the Eagle clan, so the beak, there was a beak there, and there was also those wings, but they had fallen off, and from the rotting and also from the weather. Now, the wings actually were redone, so that means that they could get put back up, and they should be getting put back up within the next month. And the person who did it his name is Norman Nekong Jr., and he is a Haida carver. I'll tell you a little bit more about him in there, but you guys will meet him in there. And he actually redid the wings so then it will be more sturdier on them. Now, below that chief, there is a wolf, and the reason why there's a wolf is because eagles could claim the wolf clan as well. So there's the two opposites, which is the ravens and then the eagles. Now the eagles can claim the wolf side as well. Now at the very bottom, there is what seems to be some sort of shapeshifter. Now it looks like there is a bear with human teeth that is, I guess, transforming or shapeshifting into a human with bear teeth. don't know the story behind this, but it seems like it was a very interesting story. Now you do see that there is some faces on some of the body parts, such as the ears, the nostrils, and the paws. The reason for that is because back then, the Tlingit people would they would put the faces on what they thought was the strongest body part of the animal. So then they knew that the bear had a good sense of smelling and hearing, and then they had very strong paws. So that's why there is the faces on those body parts. Which kind of brings me into this next one, or the very first one, I guess I should say. At the bottom, you see that the crosshatched tail does have a face on it. So that means that the beaver's strongest body part is a crosshatched tail. Now, the whole story behind this is there's actually another pole that goes along with it, right across the street. And then across the street from that, next to the village store, there was another one that got fishing one day. And while they were fishing, as you guys see, today is a very nice day, taking all that sun. But that's exactly what they were doing, but out of nowhere, this storm hits. So, just like that, the weather could change. Now, when they were out there, there's this very huge storm that had actually hit them, and either they were able to make it back to a land that they weren't familiar with, or they had actually flipped over and they had drowned. But either way, they didn't make it back to the village. And after the storm had passed, we actually went out looking for them. The way you can tell is because this eagle is actually looking up, like it's looking up to the sky, one across the like straight, like it's over the horizon. And the one that has fallen is looking down, like it's looking at the water. So that shows that we were looking for them after the storm had passed and everything. And what they would do is they would actually go out to the woods for about a year to 5 years before they ever become a shaman. And they would learn all the medicinal purposes and practice it. And once they did that, they would go back and be the shaman of the village. Now, what they do is they would have a spirit guide or spirit animal, which is the figure at the bottom. Could anybody guess on what that figure is?
Wolf? God.
Those are very good guesses. I could understand why you'd say a wolf, because it is not a wolf. What it is a weasel. Now, the way you can tell it's a weasel is because of the white head and body, which shows that shows that this is a weasel. Now, this weasel was the spirit guide of this shaman that was here. Whenever a shaman would go out, as I said, they would practice all the medicinal purposes, and for some reason they would always hallucinate after trying some certain stuff, and because of that, you can think that's why you can think that these shaman would have talking animals or spirit guides such as the weasel. Now, if they were lucky enough, what we did is do potlatches for him, and this is all because he had assisted in purchasing Alaska and getting us away from Russia, because back then the Tlingits and Russians weren't on good terms. But we decided to throw potlatches for him and honor him. And there's a total of 4 potlatches. The way you can tell is because of the 4 rings that are on top of his hat. And potlatches would last from up to 2 days to all the way up to 2 weeks, and these would go days on end. Now, after these 4 potlatches were thrown, he got many gifts and a lot of good food. And whenever that happens, whenever potlatch is thrown, so if I say I throw a potlatch for you guys, it'd be a tradition to throw another potlatch back for me, because it is about balance and respect. And either he didn't know that because of a loss in translation, or he just didn't care, but he took all of those gifts and put it onto the ship and he left. Now, after that, the carver got so mad that he actually climbed all the way up to the top, painted the nose and the ears red, and that shows his stinginess. Now, because of that, it also did turn into a shame pool, and years later, actually, so whenever a shame pool gets put up, there is a certain amount of time where the debt could be paid. So I believe it's around 2 years, but we let it happen and let it sit for a little bit longer to where they could repay the debt later on. And one of his descendants had actually come on the same exact tour, and he was after hearing the story behind it, he wasn't so happy about it, so he asked how much it would cost to get the totem pole taken down. Now, it was estimated to be about $2.2 million to be taken down, and after hearing that price, he said it was fine just to stay up. So, moving on to this next pole. Now, this next one is going to be the longest story pole that I'll tell you. Now, this could last up to an hour if I really wanted to, but I'll try to shorten it, make it about, let's say, 10 minutes, 25 minutes. But this is, depending on who you ask or who is telling the story, this is either called the Kotz Loon pole or Kotz village. Everybody knew who he was. He's best at everything. Run fast, swim fast, jump high. Best fisherman, best hunter. He's best at everything. He had a wife in the village, and one day when he was out hunting with his hunting party, they actually ran into this very large bear. Now, he decided to save his hunting party, and he ran the complete opposite way of the village and told them to run back to the village. And he ran as fast as he could in the opposite way. Now, he managed to come across this cave to where he had actually gotten into there safely because the bear was so large he couldn't fit in the cave. And in that cave, he had actually gotten tripped and fell and got knocked out. And because of that, he was asleep for a little bit. But while that was there, or while that was happening, there was actually a supernatural being or a shapeshifter that was in that cave. Now, this shapeshifter knew who Kotz was because everybody knows who Kotz is. And now, after seeing that he was in there, she decided that she wanted Kotz all to herself. So she decided to change and shapeshift into this very irresistible young lady who was very pretty, very beautiful, and because of that, she knew that Kotz would fall in love. Now, after Kotz woke up, then that is when she aided Kotz up to his feet, and just like that, he fell in love with her. Now, we'll call her She-Bear for now. She-Bear is the shapeshifter, the supernatural being, and because he had fallen in love with her, they had actually started a whole new family, which is 3 cubs above them. Now, later on, he did figure out that she was a shapeshifter, and she actually granted Kotz the ability to shapeshift as well. Now, after having those cubs were not able to shapeshift like them. So, keep that in mind because it does play a big part in the story later on. Now, years later, after there was a large potlatch thrown for Kotz, honoring his death for him helping the village out so much, and he was out hunting one day, and he always hunts in his human form because he was so used to it because he grew up as a human, so it was more natural for him to hunt that way. Now, when he was hunting, he actually ran into one of his old hunting buddies. Now, they decided to ask him, after figuring out that he was still alive, if he was coming back and how come he hasn't come back. So he decided to tell them the truth that he had started a whole new family and he wasn't able to come back. So this hunting buddy had the bright idea to actually ask him to come back and help the village one last time before he didn't come back to the village at all. So as a good husband, he said he would go ask his wife. Which after that he went back to the cave and asked She-Bear, his wife, if he was able to go back and help the village one last time. And she had one condition: as long as he doesn't look at his ex-wife that's in the village. So he agreed to that term, and he went along his way, and he went to go help the village one last time. He got a bunch of food, a bunch of resources for him, and after that they actually threw another large party for him to honor him one last time. And after that week's worth of good food and a lot of gifts, he did not once see his ex-wife. Now, as he was leaving the village and he was walking towards the tree line, out behind one of the trees popped out his ex-wife. So he knew he wasn't supposed to look at her. He dropped all of his gifts, covered his eyes, and quickly ran as fast as he could to the cave. Now, as we know, there's a lot of creatures that are here in the woods that are much faster than humans. So something had gotten back to the cave before he had and told She-Bear what he had done. Now, she knew it was an accident because what had gotten to her told her that it was an accident, but she decided to test his faith and do. Now, when he had gotten back to the cave, he had made it seem like nothing was wrong and that he didn't do anything wrong because he thought what he had done was just an accident, so it didn't matter. So, when he got there, She-Bear seemed a little bit upset, and she decided to ask Kotz if he had looked at his ex-wife. So he answered no. And because of that, she got a little bit upset and decided to take a little bit of her aggression out and rough him up a little bit. Now you got to keep in mind because he is still in his human form. So when she's roughing him up, in the cave, that is when the 3 cubs actually go into the cave and see that there is a human attacking their mother. So as some good children they are, they decide to protect their mother, and they actually maul the Kotz to death, not knowing that that was their father. Because of that, She-Bear does banish all 3 cubs away from the cave, and she mourns his death so much that it actually floods the cave, and so she doesn't flood the island. She decides to go to the tallest mountain we have here, which is Deer Mountain. Now you can't see it from here, but once you get a little bit further that way, you'll see Deer Mountain. But she goes up there, and whenever she is mourning Katsu's death, that is when it is raining. And whenever it is nice days, such as today, that is when her best friend Loon, who is at the top, is there to cheer her up and sing her happy songs. So, it seems like she's in a very happy mood today. Now, to where she had banished those 3 cubs. The largest one, which is towards the bottom. Now, that cub was sent up north where the fur turned frost to white and turned into the polar bear. The second largest one was sent down south and went through so much mud and so much dirt that the fur turned brown and turned into the grizzly bear. Now, out of pity, she did say that the smallest bear is able to stay here, and that is known as a local black bear. Now, all of those cubs actually did have cousins. One of those cousins was sent to the candy factory and got covered in sugar and was turned into a cupcake.
There we go.
The second cousin was sent to the toy factory, put on a large conveyor belt, and turned into a teddy bear. Now, of course, that isn't actually part of the story, but it's a little fun addition to it. Now, once we walk past it, you can't really see it closer. You could actually see on Cots that his ravens weren't always on good terms. There were once that the ravens were about to lose the war. They were pushed onto a small desolate island where they had very little food and very little resources. They're just overall about to lose. Now, just before they lost, there actually happened to be a ship that passed by. And that ship was actually the USS. Now, they had stopped the war because they see that there was more conflict. Stop the war and have peace. So just like that, but that is exactly what happened. The Raven Chief and the Eagle Chief decided to sign an agreement and stop the war, and that's why it's called the Proud Raven Pool, because they never gave up. Now, the reason why some sort of living creature, whether it's an actual living animal or if it's a supernatural being, such as the sun and the moon behind me. Now those have faces, so it shows that they're living. But we can't put any inanimate objects on totem poles, so we couldn't put the USS Lincoln up there. And we decided to put who it was named after. Now, of course, we didn't know who that was at the time, but there just happened to be somebody who had a picture of Abraham Lincoln in their pocket, and they decided to carve him out. Now, as we know, he is very tall, and they didn't know this, but the picture did cut off at his knees, so that's why he's so short. Now, that does conclude this part of the tour. We will. That is because they have to learn how to draw all the designs before they could ever just start carving. Because if you could carve but can't draw, then what designs are you going to make? So, this one is one of Nathan's older poles. This is on an inch to foot scale, so every inch on the paper is a foot on the totem pole. If you guys would like, you could get a better look over here afterward or now. But once they are able to, once they have learned all their drawings and they're able to draw a lot better, and that is when they could start carving. So some of the woods that they'd like to carve from is western red cedar, yellow cedar, and red alder. Those are the 3 main types of wood that the carvers would use. Now, western red cedar, it is a looser grained wood, so that means you could take more chunks off of it if need be. And they're bigger trees, so then they could use the whole tree if needed for the totem poles. So some of the things that they use the western red cedar for are totem poles, dugout canoes, clan houses, and even the building you're standing in now is made entirely out of western red cedar. Now, yellow cedar, it is a tighter grained wood, so then that means it's a little bit harder to carve off of, and it shows more detail in it. So it's used for smaller projects such as paddles, and then these come in various sizes and shapes as well. And then you got rattles, dancing hats, masks, and a unique one that we have is the bent wood box. Now, it's so unique because it is only made out of 3 main pieces of wood, which is the bottom, and then you have the middle, which is all one piece, and then you have the lid. Now, the middle is notched in 3 different places, as you guys see, and once it's notched in those 3 places, that is when they would steam the where it is notched on the other side, and they'd actually bend it into itself, and it looked a little something like this. Again, this is all one piece, and then they would be able to use it for food or storing food because it could be airtight sealed, and for regalia. Now, there is another form of a bent wood box. It is called a box drum, And if you guys like to look at it afterwards, this is a good example right here. Now I can't lift it up, but it is over here. And there's also one that Nathan did over there with a nice design on it. And it is over in the corner. That is what we call a box drum. Now if you guys thought that the drum up there was loud, this is even louder. Now both Western red cedar and yellow cedar do have another purpose, which is the bark. I was explaining a little bit about it during the walk. But what they do is they go out and take only about 1/3 of the bark off the tree, and only 1/3, so then they don't kill the tree, and they can save it for future generations to use. And some of the things they use it for is weaving, cedar woven hats, and then you got baskets, headbands, cedar woven rope, and bracelets, and pretty much anything you could think of weaving, then you could make it. Now red alder, it is a less oily wood, so then they'd use it for eating utensils, so then you can taste more of the food that you're eating and not as much of the wood that you're eating off of. Now they'd also use it for tools, and they'd go out and find a nice branch like this, and they'd fit the handle to their liking, which is the branch that comes off, and then the main part of the tree would get cut in half from the top, and then they would strap the blade to it, and it'd look a little something like this. Now this is what they use for the finishing touches of totem poles or any project that they're working on. If you felt the clan house's walls or any of the totem poles, you felt that it is pretty smooth, you don't get any slivers from it, and that is what they used, and this is usually used for the finishing touches. Now, for the beginning stages of making a totem pole, some of the things they'd use, or one of the things, is a lip adze. Now, it gives out the rough general shape of the totem pole, and the reason it's called a lip adze is because of 2 lips on the side, and it's used mainly for the rough general shaping of the totem pole. Now the last tool that I will show you guys, or the last type of tool that I will show you, is the ship adze, which this is a much bigger version of the lip adze. It has a longer handle and also a bigger blade. The reason for the longer handle is so they can get a better swing at what they're working with, and the bigger blade is so then they can take more chunks of the wood, such as hollowing out the back of totem poles and the inside of dugout canoes. Now the reason they would hollow out the back of totem poles is because Western red cedar does rot from the inside out, so then if you take out what rots faster, then it can't rot as fast. But if you look at some of these totem poles, they are hollowed out on the back, and just some examples of it. Now, as you guys see that there are only 3 main colors of paint that we use, which is the red, the black, and the bluish green color. Now, the yellow is a little bit more modern, and the white we didn't use as much either, but the white, what we'd use for is shells, and then the red would be iron oxide, and then the bluish green color would be copper oxide or iron silicate, and the black would be charcoal or coal. Now you do see that it is in a nice fine powder. The reason for that is because the way we made the paint back then is we would crush it into a fine powder, we'd put it into a bowl, and the women of the village would actually make the paint. And what they do is they take a handful of raw salmon eggs, they throw it in their mouth, and they chew it up for a little bit, and mix it in with their saliva, and afterwards they'd actually spit it into the bowl with clenched teeth, so then there's no eggshells or pulp that get into it, and they'd stir it up. And that is how one of the first oil-based paints were made. But for some reason though, the women of the village don't like to do that no more, so it does force the carvers to go down to the local hardware store and get some custom-made paint. Now, behind you see that there is a diagram up on the wall. That diagram shows how we traditionally put up our totem poles. Now what we do is we dig a 6 to 8 feet deep hole, and at the bottom of the totem pole, they'd have about 6 to 8 feet of the totem pole that would be empty. So then that would go in the ground, and we'd have 5 different ropes tied at the top. We'd have 3 in the back, 3 in the back, 2 in the front, and the 2 in the front would stabilize it while the back ones are hoisting it up at the beat of the drum. And while that is happening, the head carvers, or the carvers, would dance to the beat of the drum with their regalia and their tool belt, and they would be dancing at the beat of the drum. And after it is fully put up, that is when the head carver would tell the story or significance of the totem pole. Nowadays, as I said before, we did have about 6 to 8 feet of the bottom of the totem pole that was empty, so then it would go in the ground. But we did later realize that it does rot the totem pole a little bit faster if the whole pole is in the ground. So then now we do bolt it to another piece of wood or metal that's in the ground, so then it lasts longer. So some of these frequently asked questions that we do get asked are, how long does it take to make a totem pole? Now, it does depend on how skilled the carver is, how many projects those carvers are working on, and how many carvers are working on the totem pole. And I'd say it'd probably be about a week to a month to finish about 1 foot to 1.5 feet. And you can kind of guess on how long it take to make this. It'd be about a year. But again, it does play all those factors to make the totem pole. Now, for how much, we get asked also that how much do totem poles cost? Now, for beginner carvers, it'd be about $500 to $1,000 per foot. And for a little bit more intermediate or advanced carvers, they charge from $2,000 to $4,000 per foot. And for master carvers, they could charge anything from $5,000 or more per foot. Now, again, those are all just estimates. The real cost would be between the buyers and the carvers. And some of the buyers would be schools, libraries, parks, and even buyers such as yourselves. As long as you have the money, you could buy a totem pole. Now, they would have to be within the tradition. As I said, it can't be inanimate objects, and it can't be Star Wars. They did get asked if they could make a Star Wars pole back a couple years back, and they did quickly shut it down. So, again, it would have to be talked out with the carver as well. Now, if anybody does have any questions, do feel free to ask at this time.
Getting ready to leave Ketchikan. That is Creek Street down there. All those buildings on stilts. Pretty cool. That house that's up there. Ooh, those houses are way up there. Sure is a beautiful spot. That point up there.